Okay. Call the meeting to order. Have roll call. Ty? Here. Ben?
Here.
Hayden?
Here.
Sherry?
Here.
Show Vernon absent, please. Everybody, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 2, call to the public. Public comment will be allowed at the mayor's discretion during regular meetings. This is exclusive of items requiring a public hearing. The mayor reserves the right to limit the amount of time for public comment and impose a time limit for each speaker at each regular meeting. In order to facilitate input at the mayor's discretion, each eligible agenda item will be provided an opportunity for public comment after the staff and applicant presentations. Please wait to be recognized by the mayor to proceed to the podium, state your name and address. So do we have anybody at this point in time that would like to speak? Do we have anybody online, Kathy?
Sir.
No, okay. Move on to the consent agenda. I need a motion.
This is Hayden. I would move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. Any discussion from anyone? Now take a vote. Hayden?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
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 Sherry?
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
Mayor, if I might, I'm so sorry, Leslie Ribrola, City Administrator. Item number 4, other business, if it's acceptable to both you and the City Council, I might suggest that we hold that item until after we've concluded what is listed as item number 8 on your agenda. I think we have some pretty exciting presentations this evening, and I don't want to take away from those. So
Okay,
let's,
so
you're okay with
you
that.
move that down to 8A.
it'll just, I think you can just say you'll take that up after you've taken up the base or comprehensive plan plus Parks Master Plan
Okay,
items.
we'll just move item number 4 a little bit later.
Thank you, Mayor.
And number 5, any unfinished business from anyone this time? Okay. Item number 6, resolution 2022-63, accepting the recommendations from Field of Dreams Special Committee. You want to address it, Maddie, or?
Go ahead, Manny.
Thank you, Maddie White, Assistant City Administrator. Tonight, we have several members of the Field of Dreams Special Committee, and they have drafted a set of recommendations following a year's long worth of review and work. I believe Terry Gall is going to make that presentation, and the recommendations were included in its entirety in your packet. So at this time, we'd invite Terry to the podium to make a presentation.
Good evening, Terry Gall, 15215 Bradford Court here in Vassar. I am part of one of the members of the special committee that was formed. And so I wanted to kind of give everybody an overview, and then we'll go into a little bit more of the details of what we've gone through this past year and then the recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Good to go.
Yes, sir.
Let's start off with the background a little bit. Field of Dreams is basically youth recreational facilities located on Fairmont Road. It was built entirely by volunteers in 1997, and it was operated by those volunteers in the Vassar Athletic Association until 2010. It was annexed in the city in 2008 when the lagoon was decommissioned. And then in 2010, the city actually purchased Field of Dreams as part of its strategies and plans. Since that time in 2010, the Field of Dreams has been operated by Troy Wiseman and NYSSO, which is his organizational National Youth Sports Sanctioning Organization. In 2019 was the last time that the contract was renewed with NYSSO. and expires in 2024. So that's a little bit of history of the timing of the program. The programs offered out there are youth soccer, youth baseball, youth softball, youth football, cheerleading, and I think T-ball. I think pretty much wraps up the programs that are administered out there. So going to the special committee formation, it was the priority of Mayor Dick Drennan to put together a committee to take a deeper look into the Field of Dreams, not only the operations of the Field of Dreams, but what we have out there from an investment standpoint and from a potential future standpoint and continuing to grow as the city continues to grow. So on the 26th of this year, the mayor authorized resolution 2022-06 to form the special committee. And, you know, once again, the special committee was, you know, really tasked with reviewing the conditions, the amenities, the programs, really look at the good, the bad, the ugly, and where the future holds. Because it is something that, believe it or not, is well known throughout multiple states. I know players that have come from Oklahoma, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and South Dakota to play in those ones. So it really is beyond small town Basehor, Kansas.
Yes, sir.
The members of the special committee were selected from the elected officials had an opportunity to make selections. I talked to Mayor Drennan years ago about Field of Dreams, and he's known that this has been somewhat a little bit of a passion of mine as a resident who's had children go through the programs and the systems out there. So we formed that special committee along with the city administrator and assistant city administrator, along with Vance. Silence Repco with BSI. And Vance has kind of provided us with some good technical guidance along the way. So we really appreciate that, Vance. So when we look at the details on the members, we had Mayor Dick Drennan, City Council President Ben Sims, Council Member Sherry Standiford, myself, Janice Spillman, Dustin Pierce, Rodney White, David Hempel, Corey Turner, and Chelsea Kelly, along with city staff, Leslie, Maddie, Kathy, and Austin Fisher from Municipal Services, along with Vance from VSR Design. The selection of this committee involved a number of different types of backgrounds of people. My children are grown. I have a senior in high school, one that's a senior in college. I know, Dustin, your kids are currently in school. So there's a good mix of younger kids that are in the programs, people that are experiencing what's happening now, and people that have experienced it a little while ago. And, you know, want to continue to invest in it. So we selected and we met 8 times throughout 2022, 8 different meetings. Those meetings held primarily at the high school when we were in session. But those meetings also resulted in doing some field trips. We went out to the Field of Dreams. We walked around there. If I remember, that was a cold and a little damp night out there, to give everybody a real idea of what we do have. How far does the acreages, how far do the fields go? What does it include and what does it not include? To get us a better handle on what the city owns. We went to Mid-America Sports Complex in Johnson County, and their West Sports Complex, primarily softball, baseball fields. We drove over to Tonganoxie and met with their Park and Recs Commission out by their baseball fields. And I've got to tip my hat to Tonganoxie. I think they do a phenomenal job of allowing their youth programs to grow and expand and to have some good investment with their youth and their community. And then we also went to the city of Eudora, and the city of Eudora has got a new Parks and Rec director. I believe she's been in there about 2 years, and she's making a lot of room and headway with upgrading their facilities also. So this is not something that's unique to Baser. This is something I believe that every community has. So I think it's an investment that we want to continue to look into, and based on the direction of the city council, continue to pay attention to a little bit more than maybe has in the past. So we took a lot of notes. We had a lot of conversations. We had some very good bus rides. I think Maddie drove, so, you know, it was all a good, safe trip. But the feedback not only came from the committee members, it also came from the users of the athletic complex. We felt it was very important for the committee to figure out a way to reach out to the parents, the coaches of teams that are playing out there. So we went with Troy Wiseman and we went with the city, and we've got a list of names, and we sent out 550 emails for surveys. You know, give us some feedbacks on the quality of the facilities, give us some feedback on the priorities. What do we need to be focusing on? And 40% responded. What's concerning is if you look at this, 92% say it's average or below. And that struck me as a committee member. Nobody said it was very good, and only 8% said it was good. So it says we have some work to do, but it's not all doom and gloom, because as Van said early on, you have a lot of the pieces in place to make this thing go forever. You know, it's a good organization, it's a good property, and I think it just needs a little TLC. So in addition to rating the facility, the amenities, we asked, where do you think we should be spending dollars from a capital improvement standpoint? You know, so first we look at the facility in and of itself, take away the operations and just look at the brick and mortar piece. Look at the capital expenditures. The number one glaring thing was bathrooms. I was sitting in my pickup just 20 minutes ago, and my sister called me from Linden, Kansas. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I got an opportunity to present to the city council about the Field of Dreams." She goes, "Can you do something about the bathrooms?" And as my witness, that was the conversation 20 minutes ago. So bathrooms came up glaring. We've had some seating issues out there where we've removed bleachers that weren't ADA compliant, didn't have railings on it. They posed a safety hazard. Parking, if you've never been out there on a Saturday of a tournament, holy cow. There are a lot of vehicles that go through that facility. So you can see on the list there, field improvements, such as irrigation, backstops, dugouts, safety, you know, having a PA system for announcements, specifically for weather-related events, when inclement weather is coming in, fence improvements, and then overall landscaping aesthetics. So those were some of the things that we went and we considered. We considered the survey results. We talked amongst ourselves. We talked with Vance, and we came back with some recommendations. So really, the recommendations come down to three points. One, how much money do we want to put into it? The capital improvements to continue to make it a destination place for football, softball, youth sports, baseball. So capital improvements, operations of the programming in the facility. And I'll get into that a little bit, and then finally communications. So when we look at capital improvements, the city has budgeted $500,000 over the next 2 years for capital improvements, which is, I applaud the city council. I applaud the city for having funds to be able to do this, because it has been neglected. We just haven't paid attention to it over the last 10 years. Not pointing any fingers. I think it's something that's been there and it's been used. And, you know, I think it's time, when things wear out, maybe get a new city building, you know, those types of things. It's time to grow as the city grows with us. Renovation of the bathrooms. And some of these estimates are just that. They're just estimates. best guesses that we have based upon talking with some contractors and based on talking with some consultants. But paying attention to the bathrooms and getting them up to speed. We have wooden stalls out there yet. So getting them ventilated, especially when it's 105 degrees out, they can get pretty rancid. Getting them ventilated, getting them ADA compliant, getting the stalls in there set for privacy, and to be able to clean them quickly and effectively, and to be able to disinfect them quickly and effectively. So there's money in there for the renovation of bathrooms, for both the upper fields and the lower fields. Bleachers, I touched base on this early on. We identified we had a lot of bleachers that did not have side railings. These side railings right here, the bleachers were very old. Didn't need them, but it's a huge safety hazard. And I think we've experienced that as the city being a safety hazard, that we felt the need to correct it right away. We pulled all those bleachers out of service immediately. So if you're out there wanting to watch your child play, a lot of people bring their bag chairs with them, but we also need some seating available for parents and grandparents and family members to sit and watch their children play. Backstop netting. A lot of the backstop netting out there is chain link. It's crooked, it's got holes in it. The new stuff these days is all netting. Easy to, once you have the poles, I should say, I should preface this. Once you have the infrastructure in place, the poles in place, it's easy to take down, it's easier to repair, it's easier to maintain. So putting some backstop netting up on the center concourse, 2 fields, and then the following year, really just doing a little bit more of what we've already proposed, and that's doing additional bleachers and additional backstop. I think we've got a picture of the backstop netting on the next one. Yeah. So as we look at that backstop netting, getting it up a little bit higher than what we may have out there may help with foul balls, getting hit backwards and into the bleacher area or people walking. You know, I've been to plenty of softball and baseball tournaments in youth over the last 20 years, and I shouldn't say 20 years, I'm not that old. But the last 13 years, and you're never going to stop hearing foul ball. You know, it's going to happen. If we can mitigate it as much as possible, it would be a win-win. So that's a little bit of the netting that we're proposing put up. So that's kind of an overview of the capital expenditures that we're proposing to the city council and to the city as looking for financial investment into Field of Dreams. And you've heard me say this a couple of times, a financial investment, because I don't think it's an expense. I firmly believe in my heart that it's not an expense. It's an investment in youth sports. I have a son that played football for 13 years out there. And he just finished his season a couple of weeks ago. He wouldn't be the man he is today if he didn't experience or have the opportunity for the youth. It provides a lot of growth and advancement for those children. So moving on, the second recommendation is really on the operations and programming facility. So NYSSO has been the primary and the only operator since the city took over. Troy has done a good job. NYSSO has done a good job, but we haven't had really a competitive competition for people to run that facility. And it begs the question, you know, are we doing the right thing by continuing to contract it out? Or as the city grows, is it time for a park and recs department or a growth of a park and recs department? We're not that far down the road, but that's some of our thought process that we started to go through. So the recommendations really is, you know, to look at over the next, really over the next year, because the contract is coming up, I believe, in the beginning or the end of 23, beginning of 24. To look at, do we renew the NYSSO agreement? And if we do, what does that renegotiation look like? What does that contract look like with a little bit more deliverables and accountabilities in the contract than what we probably have had in the past? Bidding the agreement at the end of the current operating agreement, which is December of 2024. So, and then providing staff and maintenance with city staff following comprehensive review of cost, maintenance, and providing staff. And that comes back to, is it time to have a bigger park and recs? Once again, I look at Tonganoxie, our neighbors to the west, and I think they've done a really good job. I believe they have 3 or 4 people that are their full-time staff. They not only run the youth sports programs, but they run how do I want to say this? The young the 20-some year whippersnappers that do the pickup basketball games, the high schools and some of those competitive, non-competitive leagues. So they've gone beyond youth sports and they've done a really good job of working not only with the city, but also with the school system to make sure the gyms are available for those types of activities and get into basketball. And then the operational study completed and presented to the city council towards the end of November of 2023. Lastly, our recommendation revolves around communication. I think it's the committee thought it was extremely important that there becomes more accountability with NYSSO and with the city on what we lay out as expectations and what are the results of those expectations. Are we doing what we said we are going to do? I think it's extremely important for really anywhere to have that accountability, to have communication back and forth. So really having maybe the special committee present 2 times a year, having Troy come in, NYSSO, communicate back to the city. What is our enrollment? What is our process? What's our utilization? What's our participation rates? What's our expense out there? So a lot more communications back and forth amongst the governing bodies, the city, and the athletic complex. So that's kind of the long and short of what we went through over the last 8 months. I would like to personally extend a thank you out to the committee members that are here, the committee members that aren't available to be here tonight. The city council, great representation, and the mayor, thank you for giving me an opportunity to help shape the youth sports organization future for the Basin program.
Thank you, Jerry. That was excellent. Does any council member have any questions for Mr. Gall?
Mayor, if I might, I apologize. There's a few typos that are in this report, and there's a very humbling experience seeing it on the screen. So I just wanted to call it out for the city council before, and if a motion is made, just so we can maybe include that as part of the motion so that we can have permission to get those corrected. On page 4 of the report, so it'd be page 25 of the packet. The city of Eudora Sports Complex is actually in Douglas County, not Johnson County.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. I'm sorry. Also, yeah, just wait. Also, that paragraph right after where it says City of Eudora Sports Complex, the last word of that sentence should be meetings and not members. And then the final page of the report, page 29, should be 2 times annually, not 2 times annually. And I apologize. I probably read this report probably 6 times and didn't catch it, but something very humbling about seeing it up on the screen like that. So I apologize. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Mike. You look like you have some questions.
Not really questions. First off, truly thank you to everybody that was involved. I moved here in 01 and we were trying to start up a Parks and Rec beginning in 03 that involved Linwood and us and the city and the school. So this has been going on for 20 years, the exact discussion. Part of the volunteer group that helped run this for several years is actually what prompted me to 12 years ago, get on city council and do this. So I'm very much behind all of this. And I appreciate everything you guys have done. As we look at this, I might want to bump closer forward. Instead of like the operational study being November of 23, we may need to move that forward. Most of these, Tonganoxie, Lansing and others are running together with the school district, and the way funding is and budgets work, we may want to have those discussions prior to their budget in 23. So they can start having a year for us to discuss if there is a possible partnership or something that could really put some emphasis behind us. But again, appreciate everything you guys did. And
You know, we were discussing some of the same things, you know, as the school continues to grow, we know that there's probably gonna need to be a bond issue going forward. The administration and the Board of Education has been talking about that. So if there is going to be a bond issue going forward, you know, studying how Lansing and how Tongi operates theirs. And not to say that it can't continue and shouldn't continue to operate under NYSSO, but to your point, Mr. Garver, if we don't certainly want to miss the boat.
Right.
If there's an opportunity to not miss the boat.
otherwise, nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm ready to ramp it up a little quicker.
Hey, you have anything, sir?
No, appreciate all the passion and support for the project.
To
You did a great job presenting. I'm so glad that you did this and I want to thank all of you guys who not only came out tonight, but every single last Thursday of the month for the last 8 months. We really appreciate it. I know it was hard getting there by 5 o'clock and all of your input and all of the traveling that you did. We really appreciate it. So thank you for presenting so well tonight and representing us.
Sure.
I just agree. I think it was great. Thank you.
Lance, is there anything you would like to say?
Well, sure. So, yeah, I appreciate being on the committee as well. I was really not glad to be invited to do that. I've been fortunate enough and older than most of everybody else on the committee. And so I've been around the fields all over the Midwest for 25 plus years. And so Field of Dreams really is very well known through the region. And I think it really, the bones are there, which is what we've talked about early on. So you did a really nice job 20 plus years ago when you put that together. And so it's just needs a little facelift now. And times have changed and things are upgraded. And so, but I think the bones are there and it's exciting to get this put together. And the committee really did work well. It was couldn't believe that it's 8 months that we did this, but it was a very good committee, very cohesive. We studied things very through and through. And I will say, you know, in addition, when we started sort of midway through this process, the facility started to look a little bit better than they did when we started. And so there's always something to be said about keeping a close eye on things, having accountability, and that sort of thing. So thank you very much for for letting me be on the committee and hopefully we'll keep things rolling.
Thank you, Lance.
Any questions? Technical on the sports side of thing I can answer. Okay.
Thank you
Keep
again.
going. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Is there anybody else on the committee that would like to say anything at all before we move on? Definitely not. Okay, that's good. I personally want to thank every one of you guys too. I mean, it was a dream of mine to get this going. I started back when I was running for mayor. And we're here and it's awesome. I appreciate all you guys' time and effort. Like Ben said, you know, you spend a lot of time, every meeting was at least 2 hours. So you've spent time away from your family, free time, anything else. So we do really appreciate it. That being said, let's move on to, I'm going to read it again. Resolution 2022-63, accepting the recommendations from the Field of Dreams Special Committee. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would move we accept the report with the adjustments noted.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I would second.
Any more discussion? I'll take a vote. Hayden?
Aye.
Ty?
Aye.
Sherry?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you guys and thank Ben and Sherry for running. Very good job, sir. Appreciate it.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
If-
Ma'am.
if it's okay with you, sir, we'd like to take a picture of the special committee to commemorate this important occasion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Guys, you wanna go on down here and
I'm not gonna stand up.
Yeah. I'll do one with just the.
Sir.
All right. Could we do one more with the full city council, please? They're so excited. Make sure you got your.
Yeah, there you go.
Wait, wait, where's
You need to come up here too.
get one, buddy. Gary, you start. Janice, thank you so much.
And Mayor,
Good.
and Mayor, as everybody's kind of please go ahead and sit down, but just as a friendly reminder, by way of the council's budget resolutions, these improvements were already part of your 2023 budget program, so you will not have to take further action now that you've accepted the recommendations. Staff knows to implement those. So we will, of course, keep you apprised with communications as we will with the committee when these improvements are set to get started.
Okay, thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 7 and. So I need a motion to open the public hearing. Who's first?
This is Sherry, and I would move to open the public hearing for the Baser Comprehensive Plan and Parks Master Plan, planning for 2040 and beyond.
Have a motion to hear a second.
I'll second.
I'll take a vote. Ben?
Aye.
Sherry?
Aye.
Ty?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Public hearing is open.
All right. Well, Mayor and Council, my name is Christopher Shires. I'm with Confluence, part of the consultant team you hired to create a new comprehensive plan and Parks and Rec master plan. Also have Hank Moyers with our team, and a few of you probably recognize Marshall Allen, who spends way too much time there. Not enough, one or the other. So we're excited to present the draft comprehensive plan and Parks and Rec master plan to you tonight. We had a great presentation to the Planning Commission at their November 8th meeting. And so what we're going to do, in fact, if you wouldn't mind switching to the presentation, I'll show you my exciting presentation outline. Maybe. Just do that full screen. Consultants were so. It may not do it. There we go. All right, we'll just do that. I'll say next slide. We try to be fancy here. So what we want to do is kind of walk through the project schedule, just a quick recap of how we got here. Talk about, importantly, the changes. What has changed since we last presented to you? We want this to be a very fluid document. In fact, we're proposing changes here at the very last minute that then we can codify, memorialize for the official adoption later on that I'll talk in the next steps. We want to just overview the plan outline as well as the guiding principles. And then Hank and Marshall are going to help run through the specific chapters. We have a lot to present. It is a large document because it is a comprehensive plan in nature, but we're going to go really fast just so we don't bore you, but just to give this document some fair time. So if we're going too fast or you have a question, I think it'd be fair if you as the mayor and council want to interrupt us, please feel free. So on the next slide, just to recap, this is the larger team. Next one. So let's talk about that project's schedule on the next slide. So this is a many month process, but boy, we're here at the very tail end, phase 4. And so we had that phase 1 public, or where we did the investigation analysis. We had that all the steering committee meetings. Phase 2, that was all that public engagement, launching our online engagement website. Phase 3 was all that drafting, re-reviewing with you, the public, your commission, the steering committee, rolling it out to a public open house, having that online public review and comment period. And then, of course, now here in phase 4, the final review and adoption process. So on the next slide, what has changed since you saw this last? So we just want to hit some of the highlights. So we modified some of the growth overall recommendations, kind of the big strategic ideas. And so in this case, we're talking about the new text is highlighted. We want to make sure that as we're growing strategically, growing the right way, that we're expanding services throughout the community to the positive benefit of all. And that was really important comment made to us before. On the next slide, we made a few tweaks and adjustments to our proposed future land use map, mainly related to some recent development proposals and activities. We don't want to have this plan be adopted and you're just immediately amending it. So there were some good ideas on this. And so on the next slide, they kind of zoom in. So out along the highway, we had both, I do have my laser pointer. The proposal here is where we made some tweaks and adjustments. Whereas there's the existing senior living center that could expand a little bit to the west. And so maybe that area is not commercial. Instead, it's high density residential, multifamily residential. And then kind of in this little zoomed in area, today we have a large block of high density residential, but really with working with some of the property owners in the area, it may be more logical continuing as commercial. And then we buffer that existing single family with some slightly higher density residential, this medium density, think townhomes, row houses. Okay, and then on the next slide, we did a little bit of updating to some of the data analysis related to housing. We wanted to make sure we're really benchmarking and analyzing some of the development growth we've seen. And that we do want to try to push some of our residential densities for really the benefit of the city and existing and future residents. All right. And then there was a lot of discussion about accessory dwelling units, especially at our public open house. And so we've added language for the city to consider. So what is an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit? This would say in a traditional single family lot that we're either adding a new smaller standalone structure that serves as another little dwelling unit. Sometimes we think of them as a mother-in-law suite or a granny flat. Or you think of as a Fonzie flat above your garage, just like in Happy Days where Fonzarelli lived with the Cunninghams. So these are all different types of dwelling units that sometimes can help the property owner afford their house in the first place because they have a little bit of rental income. It allows people who say their mother has to move in with them, like me, that they have a little spot for them. And it can also help add a little more housing. This won't work everywhere. A lot of times newer subdivisions outright prohibit them based on their private restrictive covenants, but just to allow this as an opportunity. This is not saying you're going to do this. This is saying, and as you're looking to say, update your zoning code regulations, which you guys are in the process on that, here's some things to consider. And then on the next slide, we get into a little more of the basics, kind of like the best practices on managing and regulating accessory dwelling units. They don't work everywhere. We do need to have some standards even some design considerations to make sure they're a positive impact on the neighborhood, not a negative impact. All right. And let's see, best practices. So we updated on goal 2, the best practices for growth and development. We added the text highlighted in the red to try to cover both in action 2A, looking at language to have discuss accessory dwelling units, updating the single family zoning district to allow maybe some smaller lot sizes. Action 2C, explore requirements to support healthy housing that includes, again, those ADUs, accessory dwelling units. Draft design standards for those ADUs. And then finally, coordinate with Leavenworth County to align some of our planning work, especially related to the future land use plan, with their current and future updates to their comprehensive or to their existing comprehensive plan and proposed future comprehensive plan. We did receive recently a very timely letter from Rural Leavenworth Inc., giving us some very thoughtful comments and ideas of where they might recommend. And we did go through those very carefully, and we're going to identify where we've suggested maybe some language to address some of their comments to us. And so action item 2E is one of those in particular. All right, on the next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Hank. You at least have a laser.
Thank you, Council. Hank Myers with Confluence. As we got into the Parks Master Plan, there's a number of different items that we touched on previously, just about level of service and how your parks are currently meeting the demands of the residents based on your populations currently, and also what they will need to be in the future as those expansions occur. But in our last meeting, there was a question in regards to parks within HOAs and the usage of parks and open spaces related to HOA parks and also within schools. So the magenta text here at the bottom addresses some of those concerns. Just addressing that in the future development, dedication should be made to the city for those open space areas to allow for the city to maintain them and be open to all residents for the ability to use those for recreational purposes and not just specifically for those HOAs or the schools. Next slide. There was also a future park service areas map that was presented in the last meeting. It showed a lot of generic circles kind of throughout the map. This map is in alignment with the adopted plan for the Basel Active Transportation Master Plan, in which we started to identify the need within the community as currently and also into the future, and where some of those various parks facilities might land. So you can see here some of the green circles that we've got there. The ones with orange dots on them are potential floodplain and trailhead locations as well. What we tried to do, if you remember correctly, is align some of these parks with some of the drainage ways and floodplains within the community to create a dual usage there, to also serve as a stormwater management and detention for the community. And so you can see along the Stranger and Wolf Creek watersheds, we've incorporated several of the larger facilities, which we feel like could also serve as a recreational amenity for the community, allowing them to go out and utilize those for fishing, for boating, for a number of different opportunities as well. And then as we got into the future parks planning facilities, there was some questions in regards to recommendations for the future and making sure that there's some language in regards to incorporation of multi-generational park facilities to meet the needs of all ages and all abilities. We've incorporated some text in there regarding that. And just the inclusive playgrounds, accessible park features, multi-generational playgrounds and fitness equipment are all impactful elements to ensure parks facilities can be used by all Basel residents. Next slide, please. And then as we got into the goals in regards to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, there were several additional items that were being added. For goal number 2, to follow the best practices for parks and recreation management and funding that support an efficient park system. One of the action items that we've incorporated as part of this is to explore the integration of a dedicated parks department within the city to manage the park assets. So that is a recommendation in line with what we heard earlier as far as the Field of Dreams recommendations, to start to explore that opportunity to have a dedicated parks department. And then as we got into stormwater management practices, there was also a request that we start to look at opportunities to look at outside funding sources to manage some of these elements. And so we added some additional text in here that says the Federal Environmental Protection Agency offers several funding opportunities to help implement various stormwater, watershed, and green infrastructure projects. For example, the 5-Star and Urban Waters Restoration Program offers grants of up to $100,000 to offer financial and technical assistance to communities to help in efforts ranging from stream bank stabilization, stormwater management, urban tree canopy restoration, and projects to prevent trash in waterways. Basel should explore options for funding sources to help implement both short and long-term stormwater management practices. So that is the text that was incorporated to address the request previously made. And then in regards to the goals for stormwater management, there's several items that have been added or incorporated as part of that. And goal number 1 was to preserve sensitive environmental features as Basel continues to grow. We've added 2 additional policies that you'll see here at the bottom. The first one is to explore federal, state, and local funding options for environmental preservation and stormwater related projects. And policy 1G was to coordinate with the Kansas Forestry Service to plant native and other native plants to attract native pollinators on city-owned properties and parks, which we've addressed that. And then one of the action items that was added to also address some of the concerns was action item 1E to consider adopting a light pollution reduction policy and work towards becoming a international dark sky community. And with that, I will pass this next portion off to Marshall Allen.
Thank you, Hank. Marshall Allen with Confluence. So if you recall, the last time we were all together, we discussed several sub-area plans with you that are spread throughout the community of Basel. And at that time, the Basel Town Center, located at this location right across the street from where we are tonight, was still in process of being developed. So we have tonight for you that sub-area plan to present to you. Next slide. I'm trying to advance it. So here is the Basel Town Center sub area. So I'm going to walk through this pretty high level and quickly, but just to give you a good overview of what we're showing here. A variety of different land uses. You see the different colors called out here on the bottom. So if we look at 155th Street, the development you see here is more of a kind of a downtown urban oriented type development. Streets, the buildings are street oriented, with parking kind of screened in the rear. Promotes that walkability, promotes that pedestrian connectivity. These could be slightly higher density, maybe 2, maybe 3-story buildings, but it could also be single-story buildings. Sprinkled within those are different amenity spaces, think areas for outdoor patio seating, for restaurants, cafe seating, that sort of thing, really to kind of foster that downtown environment, which already exists to some degree along this stretch of 155th Street. As you move eastward into the site along this boulevard, all these squares that are orange colored are what we're calling medium density residential. So this could be a combination of garden style apartments, it could be row homes, it could be townhomes. These smaller rectangles you see here with the A called out, which we'll show the picture on the next slide. Those are more of a row home type of development. And the idea is that the front of those buildings would open onto some sort of communal green space with private access located in the rear. So fostering that sense of community within those developments itself. And then these areas, more garden style apartments. And then definitely wanted to incorporate an element of senior living in this concept. We have the existing legacy senior apartments located to the southwest corner of this area. A really beloved property within the community and something that we've learned throughout the process of developing this plan that is much needed in the Basehor community, more senior oriented apartments and living. So that's what you see here up in this area. With good enough space to incorporate a lot of units for those purposes. The large area of yellow is just depicting single family lots, single family residential. So you see that's a large chunk of this sub area plan. Important to note, incorporated throughout this area is smaller park spaces, communal green spaces. That's also what you see here in this lighter green color here to the south. Would also act as a buffer between the existing neighborhoods and what's being shown here. And also this area tends to lend itself to stormwater retention. It's a natural low-lying area and potentially could prevent stormwater from a large chunk of this area. We're also discussing the idea of cluster homes. Again, I'll show you a picture of what those might look like, but smaller units that kind of front onto this communal green space, this shared green space. So adding little pockets of density also in this sub area plan. A lot of this land here that you see is currently city owned. So the city is definitely interested to see how this gets developed and sees it as an opportunity to make a really great, meaningful and impactful development in the community. Next slide. And so, as I stated, there's some character images here. So I talked about the townhomes and row homes. You see the idea here, the front steps open up onto a communal space. This is actually a local example located right in North Kansas City, Missouri. And then another example here. It's just a really nice development style. And these, I know for a fact, this type in North Kansas City, they're extremely popular and sell very quickly. So it's a type of housing that is, I think, seeing a higher demand. The idea of the cluster homes. So again, smaller single family homes that front onto this communal green space, shared green space, obviously an amenity for these residents to utilize with access in the rear. And then I discussed those more urban downtown oriented buildings. This gives you a sense of what those might look like. The scale of those buildings ideally would be first floor commercial of some sort, potentially office use and upper story residential to add a little bit more density in the community and kind of foster that downtown feeling. So I'll pause there if there's any questions about what I just discussed with the sub area plan.
You may get any questions?
No?
Think we're good.
Okay, great. I'll pass it back to Chris.
Marshall, thank you. You always get to show the pretty pictures. I'll go back to the text. Next slide. All right, let's talk a little bit about the plan outline. And again, we're going to go through this document to have a fair public review of it. And just to make sure we're all on the same page of what kind of elements are in there as somebody's going through it in a little more detail, but we're going to go quick. So it's broken down into the introduction, why we have a plan, the community profile, our demographic analysis, population projections, the input of all that, the summary of all the public input we received, the all-important land use component, existing and future land use plan, parks and recreation, natural resources and stormwater, transportation, those sub areas that Marshall just reviewed, are one across the street, and then the implementation section, which is a very important part of the plan. So on the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So in that implementation, we'll have that summary outline that lists the goals, big picture, long-term kind of an idea. Policies, those are ongoing. Those are something that you don't solve them. It's something to consider that as you're making a decision on approving or denying development application or funding, this is a policy consideration for the commission, for the city council. And then action items. Specific steps to take to implement something to help implement one of these goal steps. All right, so the guiding principles. And so on the next slide, here's our summary. This plan is based on these 6 main guiding principles. So on the next slide, I just want to highlight them really quick. So community character, that's even one of the first things I noticed, how green, how treed, how very, this is a very pretty community. The priority on park space, trails, even like our discussion tonight, rec facilities, housing in neighborhoods, Housing is a very important topic for us, as is our neighborhoods and really maintaining that quality of life that people come to expect here. On the next slide, community connectivity. And so this is reinforcing that work on your active transportation plan, parks and recreation. Obviously, this does have a significant parks master plan component. On the next slide, we have sustainability. How do we make this a long-term financially, fiscally, physically sustainable, healthy place for our residents? And then under growth and development, and this is the one I showed earlier that we tweaked the second half of that statement, that we want to grow in a strategic way, thoughtfully, that's a positive impact for all of our residents. Okay. That then broke into all these chapter reviews. And so with that, we're just going to keep jumping up and down. I'm sorry, but we're going to hand it back to Marshall. I just feel like I should take this from him so you don't try to change.
Yes, we're going to just go through these pretty quickly, just to give you a sense of what is included in each of these chapters. So in the introduction, as was discussed, it describes what the purpose of a comprehensive plan is, how this plan is to be used, what those overall project phases were, the general schedule that was presented earlier describes what that planning horizon year is. So in this plan's case, it's 2040, but looking even beyond 2040. Describes what the planning boundary is, so looking outside of the current city limits and how planning decisions impact those areas, gives that plan outline, gives a description of the existing plans that the city of Basel currently has and how those were incorporated into the development of this comprehensive plan, and then discusses the guiding principles that Chris just discussed with you. In chapter 2, community profile, so there's a lot of data in this chapter. Provides that base map, which is the foundation of all the maps that are found in this comprehensive plan, gives that regional context of how Basel is situated within the Kansas City region, gives a brief history of the community, some of the trends that the data was showing us, provides that demographic profile of all those elements you see here, population projections, which are very important, some of those income profiles, race, ethnicity, housing data, and then it provides the economic profile as well, employments, where people are working, where people are going for that work, what that distance is, and some of the retail leakage and surplus analysis. So all very important information in that chapter. Chapter 3 gives them the input and a review of all the public input that we received. So, things like the stakeholder interviews, which we had early on in this process, gives a description of the public open houses that were conducted as a part of this process, and then gives a summary of the input that was received in the interactive engagement website, which is still live. As this plan gets updated, it keeps being uploaded onto that site for the community to review. And this just gives you the dates of some of those public input opportunities that we've had. Chapter 4, land use. I'm going to go a little more in depth with this one. It's an important component of this plan. So it reviews the existing land use. It does provide that planning boundary and some of those future land use, those key considerations, discusses those population projections, defines what those future land use categories are. Of course, it presents the future land use plan itself, and then goes over some of the goals and strategies related to land use. So we start off with the existing land use. We see the existing composition of what's out there today, large chunk of agricultural and developed, large chunk of low density residential, and smaller percentages as you go down to the more dense types of developments, commercial and industrial, and where those are generally located within the city today. It describes again what that future land use plan is. So it's that physical guide for growth and development within the community. It sets that preferred development pattern looking into the future. It does serve as that basis for determining appropriate zoning for property when being developed within the community. So it's something that should be referred to each and every time a rezoning application comes to the city. But it also should be a living document, be amended as needed. And anytime there is a rezoning application, the zoning map and the future land use map should remain consistent, and the future land use map should be amended in order to do that. And then it creates a series of future land use categories, which we'll go through here next slides. So real quick, agriculture, open space and greenways, pretty self-explanatory. That undeveloped land, floodplain, areas with significant tree cover, and greenways are also included in that category. Estate residential, single family residential that's on a minimum of 1 acre lots, low density residential, those are those single family homes. And this is where this definition also describes and includes the accessory dwelling units, so incorporates that language into that definition. Medium density residential, again, think row homes or townhomes, high density where you start to get some of those garden apartments or slightly higher stories than that. Neighborhood mixed use, more urban density, multi-story buildings, generally with the first floor, office or commercial use, residential dwellings up on the upper floors. Buildings should be between about 2 to 4 stories in total for that type of land use. Neighborhood commercial, so this is a combination of small retail, office spaces, and medical. These should be located at major nodes throughout the planning boundary, things like daycare, small groceries, convenience stores, hardware stores, kind of your smaller scale commercial developments. Community commercial, that's that larger scale, more big box retail, larger footprints. Business park, exactly what it sounds like, light industrial, corporate uses that can take up a large or small amount of land. And then on the next page, park recreation and public, semi-public. So for that one, think schools, libraries, churches, even that sort of land use. So with all those definitions in mind, this is what the future land use plan looks like. It provides all those different categories, again, extending out to that planning boundary, which currently extends past the city limits today. I'll just point out a couple of things. You see commercial kind of concentrated along the State Avenue corridor. This is the Basehor Town Center area plan that I discussed earlier. So you see that commercial along 155th Street. And then we're looking at a node down here along I-70 with the idea of a future possible interchange with the interstate, looking at a possible use for a business park and some more dense developments on the north side of both commercial and residential. Next slides are just a couple more zoom ins. So I think we can just go past these, but it shows the south and the north portions of the future land use plan. And I will pass it back to Hank.
Thank you, Marshall. So chapter 5 is where we really get into the meat of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. In this chapter, we start to review all the parks and trails that are there today. We provide our facility assessments and reviews, start to look at how well served the community is. We also provide a summary of the public input we received from on the Parks and Recreation side of things, what people wanted to see down the road. We looked at the level of service analysis for parks, which is also taken from the Basehor Active Transportation Master Plan that coincides with it. And so we start to look at, in the future, how many parks do we really need based on the population projections over the next 15 to 20 years. And we start to look at where those need to be situated. We look at future parks, trails, and recreation planning. And then we also look at parks and recreation goals, policies, and action items. And then chapter 6 is where we really start to touch on the natural resources and the stormwater management side of things. This is where we did a review of the existing natural resources plans and what you have within the community, and also where those future spaces will be based on the expansion of the boundaries in the future. We look at stormwater management and best management practices and start to make recommendations and goals and policies associated with those items. And then chapter 7, we get into transportation and we review the future streets plans. We also review and incorporate the active transportation master plan that I've touched on that is compatible with this document, and make sure that both of them are in this together. And then we look at the transportation goals, policies, and action items and how these items all start to come together and recommendations for the future of transportation within the community. And then Marshall kind of touched on the sub area plans, showing you the town center concept. There's also one in there for the State Avenue commercial concept, and then also one related to the business park, which we've shared previously. So with that, we will open it up to any further questions you may have.
And Mayor, if I might, just very quickly, as you're considering your questions, I just wanted to clarify for both the governing body and any members of the public that are either present or watching us online. I think it's really important from a terminology perspective that we clarify when we're saying planning boundary, that means your future land use map. in the area that the city has the statutory authority to provide. If this were in the city limits, what would you anticipate or envision a potential land use or a compatible land use? What would that be? This is not an urban growth boundary. I don't want anybody to mistake that for an urban growth boundary. The city does not have any interjurisdictional relationship with Leavenworth County, nor is it pursuing one to try to provide any level of review of properties that are not inside the city limits of Basehor. Our staff heard very clearly that our mission is to focus on property that is inside the city limits. It's specifically property that is inside the city limits that could be serviceable by gravity sewer. And so that has really been our focus. And I just want to make sure that it's very clear, in case there's any confusion, that no one on the city staff nor the consultant team is in any way, shape, or form suggesting revisiting that discussion. We are not. So.
Any council people have any questions?
I don't think questions. I appreciate the incorporation of feedback from our previous meetings and recent communication from the community as well.
Absolutely. You're welcome. And just real quick before you open it up for any general public comments, thought just to be fair to kind of explain our next steps. And so what we'd recommend is have that public input, hear any comments the folks may have for us tonight. Maybe give us a little bit of direction tonight on, hey, we heard this, or I'd like to see this changed or updated. Because what we'd like to see you, and hey, speaking of making a mistake on a slide, sorry, on occasion we do that too. What we want to do is have a meeting with the Planning Commission, followed by a meeting with the City Council to bring the absolute finalized version to you on December 8th, and maybe have a little celebration afterwards. We want to make sure from a statutorial standpoint that we're having the commission, yep, this is the version we like. We're adopting it, we're handing it off to the city council. Hopefully then you're so inclined to do the same. And so I think we're still looking at December 8th at
yes.
7 o'clock.
6.
Oh, that's 6 o'clock.
6. 7 is the party. 7 is the party.
Mistakes on the slide.
Yeah.
What? Now I know how Maddie feels.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor.
Mrs. Grogan, I think you would like to talk.
Hello, Sherry Grogan, 16635 Leavenworth Road, and I am the president of Rural Leavenworth, Inc. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and we're really focused on communicating to our rural residents and also educating them about governmental actions that could affect them. And we're particularly interested in property rights and individual liberties. And sometimes we get involved in special projects, like we got involved in the Leavenworth State Fishing Lake and cleaning that up and getting a grant for that. But tonight I'm here to talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan. It's nice to see that there are some changes that have already been incorporated based on the comments. And I want to thank the staff for getting the information out in a timely manner to everyone. So thank you. But the most glaring thing was that there are some differences on the land use map that is in the Basehor comp plan, the draft plan, and then the county plan. And in my letter, I provided 3 examples. I don't really know that you need to project that, but there are some pretty good, pretty significant differences. The first example was down by I-70 and 158th Street. The comp plan shows it as a business park and then some community commercial. But in the county plan, there's like 3 units per acre and then residential 2.5. So that's a pretty big difference on that example. The second example was along 155th Street, north of Basehor. And in the county plan, it shows it as mixed use on their land use map. And then In the base or comp plan, it shows it as some residential. So that again is a pretty big difference. Third example was along State Avenue on the area of concern is the county's map showed mixed use. And then the area that I highlighted in the baser plan, it showed it like 512 units per acre. So that's a pretty big difference. But I think the main message is that coordinating with the county and, you know, the city, whether it's Baser or Tonganoxie or whatever, that the more that you're aligned, the more common vision that you're going to have. And, you know, if a person in the county, a developer or whoever submits like a special use permit or rezoning, if it's going to the county planning commission and they're looking at their county map, and then the planning department sends a letter to Baser and say, hey, what do you think about this? You're going to look at your land use map, and there's just going to be a little bit of a friction, I think. So that's why it's important to try to align as much as possible about what the future vision is, you know, across entities. And you guys did add an action item related to that, which is good. Hopefully you can get some alignment. The second item is that we do support preserving natural resources, the parks, the trails, and all that. And one of our suggestions was to work with the Kansas Forest Department so that if you're planting trees and shrubs, that you're planting something that's not going to attract bad bugs, bad pests, that you're, you know, planting things that are actually promoting positive insects that would be good. So thank you again for incorporating that. And then there was also a mention about light pollution, and there was an action item added for that. The main thing I think though is the communication is important. We really didn't know what the intent was by putting a land use map in there that had you going outside city limits, because the last comp plan, the land use map just showed what was within city limits. So just based on the history, you know, we want to see transparency. And if there are plans at some point to do, you know, urban growth, anything like that, just be upfront about that. And if there is a plan, put it down as an action. And if there is no plan, that's fine. You know, we'll assume business as usual. And then if and when you do get to the point where you want to do some annexation or interlocal agreements, you know, communicate and provide some like illustrations that help people understand what is the impact. You know, how's it going to impact me? Our taxes, the, you know, cost of services, you know, what's the benefit to the city from a budget perspective, or the county? So more information is better on future. I mean, this could be 10 years down the road, but when you talk about making changes and you communicate in generalities, that's not really enough for people to understand, you know, is this a good thing or a bad thing to make a change of that significance. So that's all my comments. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions, Mrs. Grogan?
Okay.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thanks, Sherry. Appreciate it. So you want me to close it?
Kathy, is there anyone online or Cameron, anybody online? Is there anyone, you might want to make sure nobody else wants to provide public
Anybody
comment?
else want to talk while the meeting's open?
Okay. And I think you can call for a motion to close the public
Okay,
hearing.
call for a motion to close the public hearing.
Mrs. Hayden, so moved.
You got a motion to hear a second?
I'll second.
Call for a vote. Sherry?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Ty?
Aye.
Passes for all. Moving on to item number 8. Basic comprehensive plan and parks master plan planning for 2040 and beyond.
Mayor, thank you. So at this time, staff would stand ready to accept any comments or feedback that the city council would like to see related to this plan, if there are any adjustments. Or questions, certainly, if, depending on your responses to that. Staff is recommending that, we prepare final version of the comprehensive plan. And, staff is actually recommending, I can't take credit for it. Councilmember Sims actually asked, what are we doing for a holiday celebration? And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's November. Yes. So we thought, kind of very quickly, what can we do to kind of bring everybody together? This has been an 18-month long process. It's not something that started overnight or, I think the community's taken it very seriously. We've had a tremendous amount of input, on your vision for the future of Baser. And so we thought it appropriate, once you're ready to final this, we would send it back to the Planning Commission, but hold not a joint meeting, but have a meeting on the same evening, December the 8th at Falcon Lakes. Have the Planning Commission take up the final version of the plan, and then immediately following that, the City Council would open a meeting, consider the same action item, and then we would have our end of year holiday celebration with not only the entire, everyone that can make it from the Planning Commission, City Council, and of course, Mayor, and then all staff. So we thought it would be a nice way to kind of end the year. We're happy to answer any questions or take any feedback that you have at this time.
Anybody have anything?
Is there any additional comment at the planning commission meeting?
There was no public comment. I would note, Ms. Grogan was actually present and in attendance that evening, but it was also election night. So, and we knew that. So I should actually kind of back up and say, you're not statutorily required to hold a public hearing for a comprehensive plan at the city council level. But to Ms. Grogan's point about transparency, we really want the community to feel like this is their plan. You all have, as a governing body, have spent a tremendous amount of time and resource on this. And we wanted to make sure that the public had ample opportunity to provide input. So we noticed a public hearing for tonight as well, because of the fact that Planning Commission was on election night.
Perfect. Thank you. And that was my only other question on communication transparency. If there are changes that come out of this, right? This is generally a guiding document, but if there are specific policy changes, they'd be communicated via social media and the newsletter and any other avenue that we have.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Todd, anything? Good.
Thank you.
Sherry?
No.
Okay, well, if it is acceptable, while we have all of you here, if you are comfortable with December 8th being the date, and we'll have a formal invitation, of course, for you, but it is an event that we are encouraging you. If you have a guest that you would like to bring, and it is a +1, and we will accept your acknowledgement as the ability to use your signature for conducting a special meeting of the City Council.
Thursday
December the 8th.
at 6 p.m.
Your meetings would start, your meeting as the City Council would likely be 6:15. I need to kind of work out those details with Ms. Days, but we would probably ask Planning Commission to start at 6. And then we would notice you to start. We'd have to have an official time since you're a separate body. So I'm envisioning maybe 6:15.
Yes, for me.
Okay, so Hayden is a yes. Ty, are you available?
I'm good.
Okay. Ty's a yes.
Think I'm at.
I'll need an
I don't know.
Okay. No, we'll just, for now, this is yes, to use their signature. Yes, yes,
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes.
I'll just say, yeah.
Ben's attendant, he's a definitely maybe.
Yeah, definitely, maybe, until she
Alright.
says no.
So that you don't need to take any formal action this evening. You've given us the direction that we need. I just want to, on behalf of, the staff, really thank Confluence and their team. We do joke, but Marshall is here every week. He's been a tremendous asset to our team and a nice extension of our team. And we work very closely with Hank and Chris Klein. They're really helping us bring the dream and vision to life on the Civic campus. And Chris Shires has just been absolutely tremendous on all things related to planning. So, we could not do this work alone, and I really commend the team. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Moving on, number 9, city administrator staff reports.
Mayor, if we might, this would be a good opportunity to invite Ms. Stewart up to just do a very quick refresh of the governing body's adopted ethics policy.
I was trying to miss that.
I know. You almost made it. So close.
The best part of the meeting. Kidding me?
And we'll see you guys. Yeah.
We were gonna start with this, just.
Now I'm gonna
Yeah.
plow through all this. So briefly, you guys have had a great meeting, so I'm not gonna belabor our training on the ethics policy, but just a kind of history. You guys adopted this policy in 2022. It was resolution 2020-2022. Just want to hit the high points to refresh everybody's memory of when we adopted it, why we adopted it. The main point in adopting it is because you guys want to be and are a self-governing body. If you have problems, issues among yourselves, it's incumbent upon you as the governing body to fix yourselves. It's unfortunately not the job of your outside counsel, the city attorney, the city administrator to get involved in any disputes you may or may not have among yourselves. We talk a lot, and you hear me talk to you guys a lot about staying in your lanes. But what does that mean? Everybody talks, oh, I'm gonna stay in my lane, I'm gonna do what I'm supposed to do. Part of what got us to the ethics policy was just a reminder of what that means. You as the board, the council, the mayor, you guys set the policy. You guys are the visionaries. You guys have the policy, the ideas, the leadership. And then it's your direction to your one employee seated at the head of the table, the city administrator, to implement those policies and carry out the day-to-day work and to coordinate the staff. So that means if you guys have issues with staff, if you have issues with performance, if you have issues with anything that is going on from a standpoint of implementing your direction and that kind of work, that goes to Leslie and then that gets taken care of to the employees. Sometimes everyone forgets, it's, easy for you as the governing body to say, oh gosh, I need to talk to Kathy or I need to talk to Maddie. I'm going to go straight to them and I've got a problem. That's why staying in your lane is important, because then the information doesn't always funnel to your employee, Leslie, to make sure everything's getting taken care of. So that was one of the reasons we implemented the ethics policy, and it's just a good time. We put in the policy that every year we were going to annually train on it. And so we are reminded, it's a refresher to do that. Again, not Leslie's job to mediate between you. I think you guys do an excellent job of keeping each other in check, in line. If you have issues with staff, they're not carrying out a policy, address it with the city administrator. I'm not going to read you the 8-page document because you guys have all read it. It's your plan, it's your document. The only other thing I wanted to highlight is that we've got in the ethics policy is a reminder about conflicts of interest, that it's not, you're not advocates for yourselves, you're advocates for the taxpayers. And if you have an item that you may personally be involved in, have an ownership in a property, have a personal involvement in something that's coming up before the council, it's your job to recognize that and to excuse yourself or recuse yourself from that piece of the puzzle, and not to advocate specifically for adoption or anything that would benefit you or some project you're involved in or you have ownership with. And other than respecting the chain of command, going directly to Leslie if you have issues, and that way she can address those with the city staff. Let's not talk about the city staff. If you have a problem with the city staff, it goes to Leslie, she can deal with it. So that's the ethics policy. That is the update. Do you guys have questions?
Any questions?
Nope, good.
Sherry?
Are you sure? I mean, this is riveting stuff here, guys. Well, you always know where to find me. If you have questions, if you guys need anything, ask me or ask Leslie and she will take care of it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
appreciate it. No questions from anybody? Leslie, do you have anything you need to say? All right, now we'll move on
Thank
to
you.
item number 9, city administrator staff reports. Dean, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Gene Miracle, Municipal Service. I know Maddie's report, so I want to go before her.
Y'all,
Yeah. We are actively working weekly with Colleen Connor with GBA on the 2301 lift station. Hoping to have all that data back for the work session on first work session in December to give you an update of where we're at on the status of that. We've got the mayor's Christmas tree up, ready for the lighting coming up in a couple days. A reminder that the brush dump is moved to this Saturday. From last week, we have fielded quite a few calls at the department and people are aware of it from social media. And we did receive the resignation of our current building inspector. He is leaving to go to another municipality. So we've been actively working this week with a third-party group to come in and not miss a beat while we have the position open until filled.
And it? Yes. You may have any questions? James?
Thanks, Gene.
James. Good job.
Okay, big announcement. If we could go over to the next slide. So we have a couple updates about, yes, drum roll, please, our grant applications that we've made. If we could go to the next slide. Oh, don't go all the way down.
Oh,
Come on, Cameron.
Teaser.
Okay. So, as a reminder for this funding cycle with the Mid-America Regional Council, we submitted 2 applications, one for the Civic Campus Trails Project. We were very fortunate to receive an award of 1.24 million. We made that announcement at the previous meeting, so we're incredibly excited about that. We also made a second application for 158th Street and Parallel Road roadway and pedestrian improvements. That completes the pedestrian improvements in that blue shaded area that we commonly refer to as the Metro Green Trail, and it also provides for roadway improvements in that area as well. So we received our results. So if we could go to the next. So we have a very special announcement, building up the suspense. Next slide. So we were the highest scoring roadway project of all the Kansas applications for this particular program. And we were awarded $5.1 million for this project. We were just absolutely honored and it's unbelievable. At the next meeting, we've been working with the school district. They're actually a couple students. They have a marketing project that they're working on with us. And we're putting together of all the grants that we've received on all of our active projects, including grants at the police department, grants for our streets, trails, everything that we've received, just one sort of infographic so the community can see, okay, we've got $28 million worth of projects. We've got $16 million worth of external funding coming in to be able to fund these projects. We, just for the public record, and I hate to use the word beat out, but I'm going to say it. We beat out Lenexa, Overland Park, Shawnee, just Olathe. Just really huge cities that have dedicated staff for these particular things. So we'd like to say a very special thank you to Councilmember Fields, Chairman John Gallion, Leslie Riverola, our City Administrator, and Gene Miracle, our Municipal Services Director. But personally, I would like to say a very special thank you to Leslie. She's really been a significant mentor for us in this process and just provides a lot of guidance and insight in this process. So thank you.
Thank you. And Maddie, I want to do just opposite and say thank you to you too, because between you and Leslie, this city is going forward and we appreciate that too. get $5 million when we didn't even ask close to that is awesome.
Thank you, sir.
So much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Who's next?
I'm sorry, just a few more updates. The last issue of the Baser Quarterly did go out, that we've done for this year. We did have very good responses to our survey. The majority of residents want to see us continue that in 2023, so we're really excited for that. The updated sewer and trash letters did go out today in the mail, implementing those policy changes that you approved back in August. We've got a pretty extensive communication plan. The letters went out. We've got information on our website. Staff is ready with talking points to be able to assist any community members that have questions. And then lastly, I can't believe that Friday is the mayor's Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Starts at 6 p.m., right? 6:30, 5:30? 5:30. Thank you. 5:30 with the actual lighting at 6:30. So we hope to see everybody there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Matt, let me ask a question on, have we had a lot, and I'm sure we have had a lot more positive feedback on the quarterly than we have we had any negative?
We have had one negative comment. So we've received about 40 surveys over the last year. 39 of them are positive. One said that they would be opting out because we do give that option for residents if they don't want to receive that mailer. Certainly, the city is happy to take that off the list and save a little bit on printing and postage. They said that they would opt out, but they never followed through on that. They just said that they felt like the communication wasn't important to them. So that's really the only negative feedback. We do get a lot of really good suggestions on things that we can include. We included a staff highlight, which I drew the short straw for this one and was the guinea pig for that. So we do appreciate the community giving us feedback.
Well, I was going to talk about the mayor's report. We've talked about it now, but it's been very, very positive. Thanks to Sherry that brought up the idea a year ago. And now we've gone through a year with it, and I've heard nothing but positive about it. Transparency is the biggest issue that we've all been working for up here. And by putting out these newsletters now has been fantastic. Every time they come out, I receive quite a few calls about how awesome it is that we've gone this direction. So thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Maddie and Leslie for everything, and Kathy for everything you guys have done. So
thank you.
Appreciate it.
So yes, it is hard to follow that.
Yeah.
I was the chamber president, Corey Miller, for the Baser Chamber, had asked me to pass along to you all. If anyone was interested on the governing body and attending the Baser Chamber Party, which will be December 2nd, 5:30 to 11 p.m. So I was just asked to pass that information along to you all.
Falcon Lakes this year too, right?
Yes, it is at Falcon Lakes.
Right.
And they have several ticket options. And if any of you are interested in attending, to please let me know and I'll RSVP on your behalf. So.
Okay. It's always a fun event, guys, if you guys can make it. Cameron?
Thank you. My only report is that I am working on the November edition of the project development map, and that will be sent to you through email, the link, as well as the PDF the beginning of next month.
Thank you very much. Captain, do you have anything?
Stand up 3 years, it's 27 years in this enforcement. I don't think I need my. Everything's moving along at the department. We're more than halfway through the painting, the landscaping is done. If you haven't got to go by and see landscaping, go by there. HVAC is in line for a week after Thanksgiving. We've got applications out for 2 positions that are coming open. Officers are leaving to go to rears. I'll have to go ahead and take that up to 5.2. Sergeant Herman has put in for a jack grant this year. We got awarded 83,000 for what's called a VirTra simulator that will allow us to do de-escalation training on site rather than have to go someplace else. And we're going to open that up to Leavenworth County agencies to also participate in that, so they can come to be on that.
Congratulations.
That's it. Thank you. Sergeant, would you like to say anything?
I'm going to pass it off.
Okay, Michelle. Okay, Leslie?
I was going to say something that's probably not nearly as fun or festive as Maddie's announcement. But I just wanted to mention just so that the council is aware, staff has started receiving a few requests to either present items or place items on the planning commission agenda that are properties that are located outside of the city limits in unincorporated Leavenworth County. I'm not really sure where this is arising from. That is, in the time that I've been here, there has never been an application that I am aware of that has been presented to the planning commission for a property that was not located within the city limits of Basehor. I would just restate what I indicated earlier tonight, which is the city doesn't have a mechanism to provide a planning review with the planning commission on property that is not within our jurisdictional boundaries. And we do not have a jurisdictional boundary outside of the city of Basehor. So I'm on vacation next week and I just have been watching my email, and you just see some of these emails come through and you're like, this is going to happen while I'm not in town. And so I just want, in case any of you are contacted, staff is not placing an item, nor are we accepting applications for properties that are not requesting any annexation into the city limits. We just don't have a process for that. So that's my technical item, but obviously congratulations. We will continue to make awesome improvements, and Captain, that's amazing. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and we'll look forward. We have many things to celebrate in December. We have a great presentation in December related to the progress on your new city hall, and we could not be more excited. Thank you for each of you that were able to participate in whatever method that was. Hayden was able to provide some ideas. That technology is great, and it's just really nice to have so much support for all of the projects here from our governing body. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can you remind me of our December meetings? I know we switched those around a little bit like we did in November here. Can you just
So you will
to the top of the mind for me?
December the 7th is
Okay.
your city council work session.
Okay.
December the 8th is your opportunity to have a celebration and approve the comprehensive plan,
Roger got that one.
hopefully. And December the 14th is your regular city council
Okay,
meeting.
so 7th, 14th.
Yes.
Thank you.
You don't want to write that down?
No, I got that.
It's on YouTube. You can play it back.
I know, yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Council members report. Sherry?
Just to kind of highlight, I was very fortunate to be able to come almost each day of the strut for the new city hall. That was a lot of hard work and very exciting. So I'm glad to see that going. Also, we just had our final Field of Dreams meeting, which was really nice to get everybody together. We had a really big turnout for the final meeting, and it was, almost a year of work. So that was nice to finalize. And then I was out of town, so I missed the Leavenworth County Economic Development meeting, but I will be back and we'll be attending that in December. So any information I have, I'll bring that. So thank you.
I'll just second what Sherry said about the Field of Dreams Committee. I know they spent a lot of time, many hours, many last Thursdays of the month, going through all of that. So I definitely appreciate that. And outside of that, I'm looking forward to the first 2 weeks of December here and seeing all of you guys again.
Where are the meetings?
Well, what was it? Hold on, look at that calendar. Yeah.
Hayden.
I also have nothing. Thank you.
Okay. I swear I'm gonna move the mayor's report to number 1 because you all steal my thunder every.
Oh.
But no, that's okay. I just wanna talk a little bit we spent 3 days in here trying to pick out a new city hall, and I think you guys are all gonna be very happy with it. And do we have like a groundbreaking or when they're gonna start? Things are getting started yet? Any idea?
So we actually talked about schedule today. Construction documents should be finalized in March. And so I think let's kind of see what we think the bidding climate's going to look like around
Okay.
that time. We've been tossing around whether or not we need to try to do pre-qualification of contractors, so that we can ensure that we're getting not only a contractor that can complete the project on time, but that has the resources and the wherewithal to source the materials and what we need. So more to come on that, but
Yeah.
you,
Good.
as a city, as a governing body, you will be instrumental in establishing a date where all of you can be there.
Okay. And a little bit about what we did. Every wall in here basically had pictures, designs, everything on it, and they showed us everything. We had to go put dots on things. We had to, I mean, it was pretty awesome. It lasted for 3 days. I think came away with a pretty awesome plan. So if you guys haven't ever been to the mayor's or to the Christmas tree lighting, it's not just for little kids. And that's what it's mainly for, is for the kids that love seeing Santa Claus. It's really fun seeing the lights come on. But it's great for everybody. So if you have a chance, you can come. Is it the Kiwanis that has the hot chocolate? And Lions Club. There's different organizations. We're talking about the bells.
Yeah, Marshall from Confluence will have, he is in part of the Handbill Squire.
Oh.
Fun fact. Yeah, we'll also have crafts for kiddos. Santa will be taking pictures, and those pictures will be made available for parents for Christmas cards or however they can distribute that. We also have coffee, cookies, bottled water, just a lot of different items.
It's a nice Friday evening to spend there. So if you guys can make it, it's fantastic. So that is basically all I have left then. So and we have an executive session, I believe. Do we not?
I think it's on.
Oh, sorry. There is one here.
Oh.
Thank you. I was like, let him out of here.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that the governing body of the city of Basel recess into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel to protect the privacy rights of such individuals pursuant to KSA 754319B1. Present will be the governing body, special counsel Michelle Stewart, and if requested, city administrator Leslie Riverola. The executive session will be for a period of 30 minutes. The governing body will return from executive session no sooner than 8:10 p.m. tonight. Oh, 9:10.
9:10 p.m. I apologize.
I have a motion here, a second.
I'll second.
Sherry?
Aye.
Ty? Or Ty?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Yes. All
All right.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Great.
10.
extend.
Take a, yes, your new motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we adjourn the executive session with no actions taken at this time and reconvene into regular session.
Have a motion here, second.
Second.
Ready, in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we move that the governing body of the city of Baser recess into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel to protect the privacy rights of such individuals pursuant to KSA 754309B1. Present will be the governing body, special counsel Michelle Stewart, and city administrator Leslie Riverola. The executive session will be for a period of 30 minutes, not to exceed 9:40 PM.
Have a motion here, second.
Second.
Ready, in favor?
Aye.
Do you want to also include the city attorney days?
Open to it?
Sure. Fine. Sure.
Would you like to make an amendment to my motion?
Yeah, you have to amend it. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to amend that motion to include the governing body, special counsel Michelle Stewart, city administrator Leslie Riverola, and our city council, Michelle. Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I was just.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, let's go do it, guys.
So now.
Good. Yep. Good.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we adjourn the executive session and reconvene into regular session at this time.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Vote on it. Ben?
Aye.
Sherry?
I.
Hayden?
Aye.
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 And Mr. Mayor, I would move that we provide a one-time PTO addition of 160 hours for the city administrator effective calendar year 2023.
A motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Take a vote on it. Ty?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Sherry?
Hi.
Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion.
Opposed, same sign.